air intake. That's supposed to say seals and shrouds right here, which is part of our cooling system. What do you mean by that? What's seals and shrouds? What's it got to do with our cooling system?
Well, because if you don't have a radiator shroud, you don't get good cooling.
Yeah, our cooling system does include, a way for air to get into the radiator, air intake. It includes a condenser, because we need that air flowing by the condenser to get rid of the heat energy that we absorb from the passenger compartment. We need a radiator to get rid of the heat that's added to the coolant from combustion and from the heat absorbed from the passenger compartment. We need fans to help pull air past those two components, the condenser and the radiator, to transfer the heat to the outside air so we have sufficient flow. And the seals and shrouds and the dam, the air dam that goes underneath the car, are all part of the cooling system as well. So if those are damaged, if the seals around the hood aren't there, then you're going to draw air into the hood without it going through the radiator. So we're going to lose some of that airflow through the radiator. And if our shrouds are not in place, we're going to lose airflow through the radiator primarily as we're driving down the road, and if the dam isn't in place as well. Both of those items are going to contribute to airflow through the radiator, both as we're driving down the road, and in the case of the shroud, even with the fan on or off. So if you had a vehicle which the air dam was torn from the bottom of the vehicle, that is critical to airflow through the radiator as we're driving down the road, because it creates a little low pressure area just behind the radiator, which enhances the flow through the radiator and the condenser. So if that's damaged, you lose that. And if we lose that, as it relates to AC system, we're going to lose some of the cooling that we get, some of the heat energy. Some of the heat energy won't be removed from the refrigerant, so it'll stay in the refrigerant, and our high side pressures will be higher than normal. Here's a clue for you when you're diagnosing the vehicle, guys. If you have a core AC performance complaint, and you hook your gauges up, and you watch your high side pressure just climb, then there's your clue that it's a problem with this subsystem, the cooling system. If the high side pressure is climbing too high, and you'll see that. Our air distribution system also plays a role in the function and the effectiveness of our cooling system. This system right here. How can that affect our performance?
The mode doors fail all the time.
Say that again?
Mode door actuators and stuff fail all the time.
Okay, that would affect where the heat comes out.
Well, the heater temp door.
Good. Good. One of your first checks, you guys are going to be doing some diagnostics. And I gave you one of these sheets here that shows how I'm going to be grading that. Which, by the way, last time a lot of you didn't really follow this very much. Although I think I gave you the one for the AC class at first. A couple of things didn't apply. You need to follow this process, and you're going to get really trained on following this process. And one of the things you're going to be doing is a system performance check on the AC system. Now, you're going to do your normal system performance check with the scan tool, looking for DTCs and for communication ability and power moding in some cases. But you're going to do a system performance check of the AC system. And one of the first things they have you check is to see if this door is working. Because if it isn't, you're going to be adding heat energy to the air coming into the passenger compartment. So the AC system may be working fine. The refrigeration system may be working fine. But if this is adding heat energy to it, then the customer's going to be complaining about poor cooling. If you skip this step, this is one of those situations where you're going to get led around in circles and waste a bunch of time and lose a bunch of money just because you skipped that step. Now, even though I speak about this at the beginning of every class, I still see students falling into that trap. So it just takes practice, it takes learning from experience, but if you follow the process, you can avoid it. How do you check to see if this thing is working, I suppose?
Turn the knob. Listen for it.
What do you listen for? You're right, Zach.
The motor. Or the flat. I don't know what it is.
Okay. What do you mean, depending on what it is?
Well,
right on all counts.
Sometimes you can't hear the flap closing.
Yeah, that's right.
Sometimes you can't hear the motor turn, depending on the vehicle.
That's true. The motors turn pretty slow. Sometimes you can hear them, but sometimes you can't. And even if you can hear the motor, does that mean it actually moves the flap? No. Here's what you want to listen for. Listen for a change in airflow. You go down there on an operating system, change the position of the temp door, and listen for a change in temperature. Change in airflow, because it will make a different noise. If this is closed, if this is closed up so the air can't go through the heater core, all the air is flowing through the evaporator and bypassing the heater core. So we don't have this restriction in there. But if we move it to the full heat position, now all the air is flowing through the evaporator and it has to flow through the heater core, which is an additional restriction. It changes the sound. So the fact that you hear a change in the sound of the air tells you that the door moved. So it's probably not the reason for the AC. Anyone understand that? All right, do you have a question or comment about that?
Couldn't you put it on, turn the AC off, put it on heat, and turn it all the way hot, and turn it all the way cold?
Yes, so you can do that. The only thing with that is that you've got to get it up to operating temp to see the change. Actually, you'll see it before it reaches operating temp, but that is a way you can do it. You can do it both ways. The only reason I use that, the procedure of listening to the sound, is because you can do that right away. You don't have to wait for it to warm up. Now, the caveat to that, and I expected some of you to probably mention this, is that what if it closed partway? You'd still hear a change in the sound. The fact that it didn't close completely means you would still be adding some heat energy to the vehicle. So yeah, that could happen. And it would typically, that kind of complaint would typically show up as being the AC works fine at times, and because it can overcome that small additional heat load being added by the heater core, but under severe heat load conditions, then it couldn't keep up with it. And that's when it would show up as a concern. You'll run into a lot of customer concerns like that. AC works fine for a while and then it stops working, or it works fine at times and then it stops. It doesn't seem to work as well as it used to. They're going to be kind of this nebulous little area where they're complaining about it, and when you get it, it'll work fine in the shop. And it's all because of the nature of the failure and the heat load being added to it at the time that the customer notices the problem. So you're going to try to duplicate their concerns sometimes. So air distribution can be affected by that, but there's one other thing here. What's over here? What's this motor door here? Anyone know?
Max AC.
Yeah, Max AC, which means
Recirculator vent.
recirculation. Yeah, you guys have seen it on our cars. There's a recirculation valve on all of our cars of some sort. And if we close that recirc door, it blocks off outside air from coming into the AC system, all but about 10% of it, approximately 10 or 20%. We want some outside air coming through all the time for safety reasons. But it blocks off a significant part of it. The point of that recirc door is that if it's really hot outside and you want to get maximum cooling inside, you want to reduce the heat load by not pulling outside air in. That really hot 120-degree outside air. So you put it in recirc, and that will draw in the cooler inside air, just recirculate it, so it's easier to cool down the passenger compartment. If that fails, the customer's concern will be that the AC doesn't seem to work as well as it used to at times. It's going to be one of those kind of complaints, because it's only going to be a problem when they're in a high heat load condition. And the other thing you're going to run into is customers are going to go get in their car. It's been sitting out in this hot parking lot all day, and it's 120, 125 degrees inside there. They're going to get in it and they're going to turn the AC on and put it to max AC, which is going to close this recirc door, and then they're going to say, boy, it took a long time to get cool in here. What do you think about that?
Well, yeah.
Why?
Because it's hotter inside than it was outside.
Yeah. And they don't know this. They shouldn't be closing that recirc door unless it's hotter outside than it is inside. The car that's been sitting in the parking lot is going to be all hot. So the recirc door should stay open. The window should be open so we can get rid of that heat energy. Then they can rely on the AC system. It's an automatic system on our vehicles. It takes that into account. It's not going to close the recirc door if the inside temperature is 125 degrees. Yes. Yeah.
Multiple
Multiple ambienters. But, think about that, because if you have a failure either of the outside air temperature sensor or the inside air temperature sensor, it can affect the function of the research dorm on an automatic system. And again, cause one of those concerns about AC performance under some conditions. How does it work? Well, we talked a little bit about it already. The whole point of our refrigeration system is to evaporate something to make this change of state, because most of the heat energy is absorbed during the change of state. That's what we're trying to do here. You also understand that the evaporation point of liquid is going to be affected by pressure. So we can change when something evaporates by varying the pressure, and that's exactly how our AC systems work. This is exactly what we do. We don't add heat. We don't heat up the refrigerant to get it to evaporate. We just change when it evaporates by changing pressure. We talked about the function of an AC system. This is important for you to keep in the back of your mind, is to remove moisture, remove heat energy. It doesn't add cold. There's no such thing as cold. It removes heat energy, and it removes pollen and dust in the process. And then we talked about the difference between heat, the amount of heat energy, which is BTUs, and we talked about what temperature is, which refers to what? Pardon me?
Intensity.
Good. The intensity of the heat. Great. And here's the difference. If you look at this, you have if I take a cup of coffee, I pour coffee into this cup right here. They're both at the same what? Temperature. But which one has more heat energy?
The big one.
Yeah, this one, because it has more mass to it. You got your barbecue grill and your swimming pool, and you guys will all have this because you're going to make so much money as a technician. You're going to have a barbecue grill and a swimming pool, and you're going to be eating good steaks. And to eat a good steak and grill it properly, we want to get this grill up to what? So when you hold your hand over it, you can't hold it there for more than a second or so. 500 degrees. So you're going to get this up to 500 degrees so you can grill those steaks properly. Which one has more heat energy, this grill or this swimming pool?
Swimming pool.
Even if the swimming pool is at 60 degrees, it has more heat energy than the grill does. That's the difference. That's the difference. Even though that refrigerant went into the evaporator and absorbed a whole bunch of heat energy and came back out, the temperature was very low, but it had a lot more heat energy than the refrigerant going into it. It absorbed a whole bunch of heat energy, invisible heat, latent heat. I stress that because technicians and students tend to get confused about what happens if you had a system that was plugged up. We got this compressor pumping refrigerant against the restriction of the orifice, concentrating the heat energy into the condenser, which raises the temperature and the pressure. So that's all cool in a properly operating system. It's concentrating the heat energy that it absorbed from where? The passenger compartment. If we had a orifice tube that was plugged up, how would that affect our high and low side pressures?
Your high side would be really high. And your low side would be really low.
What do you think? Seems logical, doesn't it? Yes? Yes, no? Maybe? Remember, the function of the compressor is to concentrate the heat energy absorbed from the air entering the passenger compartment. We absorb that air from the refrigerant flowing through the evaporator. If the orifice tube is plugged up, do we have any refrigerant flowing through the evaporator? So is it absorbing any heat energy? No. So now we've got refrigerant that's been pumped into the condenser, and it's staying there. So we are not pumping any new heat energy into it. So the pressure on the high side will be, even though you got it plugged off on the orifice, it's going to be lower than normal. Yeah, it's going to be higher than the low side, but it's going to be lower than the pressure on a normally operating system, because it has not absorbed any heat energy from the passenger compartment.
Well, wouldn't it just continually pumping and creating more? It doesn't create pressure.
Well, no, well, it does create pressure, but once it's pumped all it can pump in, that's it. It's going to stagnate and it's going to cool down and the pressure's actually going to drop because it can't flow. Pressure in the tank will actually drop at that point. All right, we talked about heat transfer. The rules are heat has to, in order for heat energy to transfer, one substance or component has to be hotter than the other. It's always going to transfer from hotter to cooler. And the rate of transfer is going to depend on that difference in temperature. So we want to get the condenser as hot as possible to get rid of the heat energy as quickly as possible. We want that difference in temperature. We would like to continue to get rid of the heat energy after the change of state. So the condenser is made big enough so that the refrigerant will change state, continue to move through the bottom of the condenser as a liquid and get rid of a little more heat energy. We call that what? Subcooling. Subcooling is a good thing. We want that. Gets rid of some additional heat energy, so it's easier to absorb more heat energy when the refrigerant goes back to the evaporator. The whole idea is to get that change of state to occur. You guys can review that. We talked about this a little bit. Latent heat of water, they're saying 970 BTUs per pound. R134A, to make that change of state, is around 93 BTUs per pound. So, not as much as water, but a lot more than it takes to absorb, just to absorb heat energy from its freezing point up to its evaporation point. We need to have it do this. We need to have it evaporating for it to be effective in absorbing heat energy. And we understand that we have this boiling pot of water boiling, and it evaporates. The temperature of the water at boiling point and the temperature of the steam is equal. Good. And then the opposite is true for condensation. When we change it back into a liquid, the refrigerant back into a liquid, instead of absorbing heat energy, we're giving it off to the outside air. Again, latent heat. And we talked about the pressure-temperature relationship. Anything more to say about that? No. Thank you. And our basic refrigeration cycle. Here we go. This is a dual system right here. This has rear AC. It's just a parallel system. Our basic system consists of our compressor, pumping refrigerant into the condenser, concentrating the heat energy now, changes state, continues to move through the condenser, even after the change of state, in liquid form, subcooling. And then it's going to go to one of two places. One is through the orifice tube, where it's going to be metered into the evaporator, where it's going to start evaporating and absorbing heat energy, and hopefully evaporating throughout the whole surface of this evaporator, and leaving the evaporator as a combination of what? Not air, but vapor and liquid, refrigerant. It's going to enter the evaporator, go down on the bottom, evaporate and go back out as a vapor, where it's going to complete the cycle. Leaving the compressor, it's a what state? Vapor. But what pressure?
High.
High pressure, high temperature vapor. Goes into the condenser where it's going to condense into a liquid. It's going to leave the condenser as a high pressure, high temperature liquid. Now we get rid of a bunch of heat energy, but it's still going to be warm, except for the additional subcooling that occurred after the change of state. So it's still going to have to be a high pressure, relatively high temperature liquid. Goes to the orifice tube, where the pressure gets knocked down. So right after the orifice tube, it should be a what? Pardon? Well, low pressure liquid is the good answer there. Now it feels cold because what's happened? Some evaporation is occurring. That's why it feels cold, because you drop the pressure. So some evaporation is occurring right away. But we don't want it to all evaporate. We want some liquid going into the evaporator so that it evaporates in the evaporator. It leaves the evaporator as a what? Low pressure, low temp vapor. Ideally. Now we know that on this system, some liquid is also going to come out, which is why we have the accumulator dryer down. The accumulator dryer, it's going to leave that as a low pressure, low temperature vapor, where it enters compression repeats. Now the